Hi there, wanting to find a good book that will really make you think but is exciting and dramatic as well? Well, look no further because I'm Simon Wraith and this is the Catholic Critic. Welcome back to the Catholic Critic. Last week I talked about a book which warned against reading Philip Pullman's His Dark Materials trilogy, and I promised that I'd talk about some other adventure books that are good for Catholics to read. Well, I'm a man who keeps his promises, and so for the next few weeks I'm going to be concentrating on science fiction and fantasy stories, which I think you and your family will enjoy. Science fiction and fantasy stories fulfill a very basic need in all of us, the desire to escape. Sometimes that is looked down upon as an almost childish idea, something that adults shouldn't do. Adults should face reality, it is said. But Tolkien, whose work we will of course be looking at, says that it is our duty to escape. Like a man held captive by an enemy in war, so are we imprisoned in a flawed and broken world. Fantasy allows us to escape, if only for a short time, to a world where good triumphs over evil and there are true heroes. Fantasy stories can also allow us to reflect on our own world by using metaphors and imagery which might be too obvious or politically incorrect to tackle head-on. There is much more to fantasy than something you should have grown out of when you were 12. So, what are we looking at today? Well, it's a classic piece of 1950s sci-fi. Not quite like that, but it's from the same era. This book is Robert A. Heinlein's Starship Troopers. Now, many of you might be surprised by my recommendation here because you will be most familiar with the book from the movie adaptation directed by Paul Verhoeven. That movie was violent, obscene, filled with sex and nudity, and really isn't something you should be watching. Rest assured, I am absolutely not recommending the movie. In fact, I'm doing quite the opposite. The film is something Catholics should never watch. So, how can I recommend the book if the movie is so morally abhorrent? Well, the movie is nothing like the book. In fact, it's pretty much a parody of the book. Verhoeven takes what the book is about, deliberately fails to understand it, and creates a ludicrous piece of cinema that owes more to the triumph of the will than it does Heinlein's novel. Okay, so what is the novel about? Our hero and narrator Johnny Rico joins up with the Mobile Infantry, an elite infantry force that makes the United States Marine Corps look like a bunch of Boy Scouts, and he goes off to war to fight the bugs. The Terran Federation is a galaxy-spanning human democracy with one important difference from our political system. Only those who have completed a tour of federal service in the military are permitted to vote. The bugs are a communist species, and it is this war between individualistic fascism and corporate communism which provides the foundation for what the novel is really about. The story, the action, adventure, and daring do of this novel act as the framework for a series of political discussions. Heinlein was writing in the 1950s, and he looks forward to a fictionalized end of the 20th century where society broke down because of liberal policies in terms of punishment, authority, and responsibility, a period which led to the government depicted in the novel. Now, his future past is not prophetically perfect, but it is disturbingly close in some key ways. Now, many commentators on the novel have, I think, missed the point. Heinlein didn't believe everything he put in the mouth of his narrator and the other characters. What he was doing was creating a fictionalized world which was extreme and, in being so, would encourage us now to ask questions and think deeply about political and personal responsibility. Heinlein was concerned with the changes he saw in society at the end of the 1950s and wanted to comment on them. We shouldn't read Starship Troopers as a manifesto for future government any more than we should read Atlas Shrugged as a guide to economic stability. Now, I mentioned fascism earlier, and this is one of the most common charges levelled against the book. It's a hard charge to refute because the characters in it are fascists, but they are fascists in the classical sense, not the modern one. To make it clear, they are fascists, not Nazis. This was something that the movie failed to appreciate and which I want to make very clear. Fascism is a political system where the good of the state and the body politic takes precedence over that of the individual while still allowing individual freedom. The government in Starship Troopers is certainly fascist, but it is most definitely not Nazi. Now, there is more discussion of the notion of fascism in the document attached to this review, which I would urge you to read. The book is a product of the 1950s, and I find that delightful, and the book itself delightfully naive. There is absolutely no swearing in the book, characters still smoke, and women are not part of the elite infantry. But lest you think this is a misogynistic view of the world, rest assured that women make the best Starship pilots, and that our hero is simply too dumb and too male to cut it as a flyboy. The technology is also a wonderful example of what the 1950s thought the future would be like. Frighteningly advanced in some ways and very simple in others. Now, I absolutely adore reading old sci-fi for just these reasons, because it shows the future in a way that it really hasn't turned out to be. There's a wonderful innocence to it, which is an artistic choice that I find delightful. All right. I left the boys' own adventure stuff until the end of the review. This is the story of war, and there are battles and explosions and so forth. The book is one of the first, if not the first, to talk about powered armor. Individual, personal suits of armor with hydraulic muscles and oversized weapons. Simply for this reason, you should read this book. Every single modern hero in futuristic armor owes something to Starship Troopers. Now, I don't think I can recommend this book enough. It is dramatic, fun, exciting, thought-provoking, and excellently written. And it's available in paperback very inexpensively. It's a book that people of any age can enjoy. There is nothing in here that would offend a teenager. Of course, you might not agree with all the views in the book, but I think that you will at least sympathize with most of them. And this story can be an excellent jumping-off point for further discussion. In order to help you with that discussion, we've included a document attached to this review. As well as talking about this novel, it also explores Heinlein's life and other works. He was a very interesting character with many views which might seem contradictory. He was certainly no saint, but as a sci-fi author, there are few who are half as good. So, that is Starship Troopers, a science fiction book which I thoroughly recommend for everyone capable of picking it up and understanding what the words mean. Pass it around a group of friends and then sit on the porch this spring. I guarantee the discussions will be interesting. I'll be back next week when I'll be introducing a series of books that really needs no introduction. Until then, God bless. I'm Simon Rafe, and this has been the Catholic Critic.